I'm convinced this season of Married at First Sight, on the casting call, they had to say, if you are looking for the perfect wife, or if you have gotten the perfect image of your wife from a Disney movie, come on over. That's who we're looking for. What's up, y'all? We are back with another review of Married at First Sight, season 13, episode 13. And my goodness, the episode was a lot. The preview of the upcoming episode was a lot. We just got a lot to get into this episode, and it is really exhausting. But I feel like we say that every episode because it's just, it's 2 hours. It's a lot of information, and these couples are going through a lot, mainly the women, because most of these men out here are trash. But let's get into it, y'all. It is day 39 of marriage. Episode opens, Michaela and Zach waking up. He's calling her a bum for whatever reason. Ryan has to show us how messy Britt is yet again, as if we didn't see it enough last week. And then Gil and Mirla, I just want to combine their names all the time, in the gym, keeping it right, keeping it tight, okay? So this episode opens up with the blind leading the blind. That is Johnny and Ryan have met together and they are playing pool. Johnny says that the past few days with Bao, it's been so much fun because we've gone on dates. We have so much fun. She's planned all these things. And I'm like, yeah, it's great because she's planned it. Once again, Johnny, what are you doing and what do you contribute to this marriage exactly? Other than telling Bao what you need her to do. I'm not understanding it. He said everything felt natural and not forced. And then here comes Ryan that says he just can't force it anymore. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, what did you force initially? Because we have not seen any effort from you as well, sir. Johnny says that, this is the week that Bao is, really trying, and almost to the point of trying too hard. And I could do nothing but sigh because I'm like, Johnny, which do you want? Do you want her to try? Do you want her to not try? You are making it confusing for us, so I know for sure Bao is over there not knowing what the hell to do with herself because you just keep flip-flopping every other day. Are you on your period? Cut it out. Johnny says that he tries to disregard the negative things and focus on the positive things. He asks if Ryan, if this is something that he is considered. And of course, Ryan's like, no, it's not realistic. No, I have not considered that. That we can't do that because that's not what reality is. And I'm just like, but can you focus on something positive? Okay, something. So Johnny then proceeds to tell us out of his mouth that, I just, every time I hang out with Ryan, it just seems like he's very negative about the entire situation. And I'm looking at him like pot meet kettle, kettle meet pot. Excuse me, sir? He says, this just isn't helpful. So I'm like, if talking to Ryan is not helpful, why do you continue to hang out with him? Because you're saying that y'all hang out a lot and talk. If you feel like this is not benefiting or improving your situation, go find help somewhere else because obviously Ryan cannot help you, Johnny. You can come to conclusions about everything else, but not that. Okay, sir. We then see Bao and Johnny getting ready for bed. And I'm like, Lord, we about to have a deep, dark conversation because that's what these two do every time it's time for bedtime. Johnny says he thinks they would have a lot less arguments if they were not missing the lack of foundation, trust, communication, and a solid friendship. And he's like, don't you agree? And Bao is like, now that you ask, no, I don't agree. She says that basically having a friendship is counterproductive to the intimacy that's needed for a marriage. So they continue to talk, and it seems that from this conversation, we can tell that they either have stopped having sex or sex is not happening as frequently anymore because Johnny says it just isn't doing anything for him. So he would rather just take it out of the equation right now. And I actually don't mind that. It is definitely more of the messenger because I don't like Johnny. But I don't mind them not having sex because, again, we always hear and we know that sex can really cloud your judgment. So they're already in a confusing situation. We don't need sex on top of it to make things even more confusing. But then Bao points out that, basically Johnny has made this decision for them and she has to just go along with it, which is not fair. And I 100% agree. Although I think it's best for them not to be engaging in sex right now, it's also not fair that Johnny made that decision for the both of them, and then now she just has to deal with it. So, Bao, I guess you better go to that secret drawer, honey, and get it popping by yourself, okay? But he basically gets upset in true Johnny fashion and walks away. And Bao seems like she's getting pretty fed up with this behavior, and I don't blame her not one bit. He says he wants to build a foundation first and felt like moving forward this week that they were doing really well. And then I guess now that they've had this conversation, all of that is going out the window. And I'm like, Johnny, how are you going to discredit everything that this child is trying to do and has done because one thing has happened and all of a sudden none of that stuff counts anymore? Like, who wants to keep trying if every time one minor infraction happens, the other 20 things that they have done then mean nothing? Like, where they do that at, and where does that make sense at, Johnny? I don't understand. He says that she said a foundation isn't needed, which is why he got upset and kind of walked out the room. And I'm like, Johnny, that's not what she said. She said that she believes a friendship is counterproductive to a marriage, which really needs to intimacy. With friendship, you are not intimate with those people. So I understand what she's saying, but you need to listen to actually actively hear what the person is saying and not listen to respond, because that's what you're doing right now. And it's getting on all of our nerves. So now we move on to the individual meetings with Pastor Cal and Dr. Pepper. And all I can say is, Dr. Pepper, girl, where you been at? We been needing you to come here, okay? Because Pastor Cal just tells these people what they need to hear. And Dr. Viviana, she's just here to look cute. She ain't really here to give no real advice and substance to help these people along. Dr. Pepper's the only one to keep it real. So I was very excited to hear her input on these couples, okay? So we see that Gil meets up with Pastor Cal first. He shares that he finally got his first kiss. Yay. And they've been kissing ever since. He asks what he thinks the reason are they got matched as far as Pastor Cal to Gil. And he says that they're both very honest people. They're both very caring and very passionate. So that makes them get along very well. Pastor Cal asks if there are any unanswered questions to make him say no on decision day. And Gil says that sometimes she gets in moods where she gets really short with him and she can be really moody and be pretty much just a Debbie Downer. So Pastor Cal asks if this will be too much for him, and he does say yes. He shares that he has told her straight up, like, we ain't having this, you need to cut it out, because he ultimately does not want the negativity to affect him. And I think so far Gil has done a really good job of really deflecting and bouncing back when she does come with the negativity. He's able to just kind of keep the mood upbeat and not really match her energy where she was. So he's doing a good job, but I can imagine that will get exhausting over time. Pastor Cal asked him if he think that past relationships that Mirla has been in, if that's basically kind of caused her to be the way she is. Basically, anybody else has basically just caved into whatever she's wanted to make her happy. So she thinks that's what she's going to get. And Gil says yes, because I see that, but she ain't getting that over here, pretty much is what he's kind of saying. So Pastor Cal said he really wants them to explore this and address this issue before it becomes a real problem. Now we see Mirla on the other side. She's meeting with Dr. Pepper, and homegirl has shared in the confessional that she's had a little bit martinis and she is looking toasted, honey. She's coming in here with a little sway, face getting a little red, swinging her hair, stumbling a little bit. I was like, really, Mirla? When you need to be focused and having a conversation, you gonna go and get this toasted with your friends? And child, of course, Dr. Pepper's like, ooh, looks like you had a little bit of fun with your friends and you're not quite sober yet. So I love Dr. Pepper, child. So Dr. Pepper asks what other questions she needs to ask Gil to help her say yes on decision day. She says, what does he need from her to make him happy, or what is she not doing to make him happy? Dr. Pepper noticed and brought to her attention that you're a pretty critical human being. And of course, because of what we've all seen thus far, we know this. She says that she's just honest and blunt. Of course, that's what she uses as, it's just the way I am. It's just what I do. So Dr. Pepper does bring up that, you know, constant criticism can change the mood, and that could become a problem. So of course, that directly aligns with what Pastor Cal is then telling Gil on the other side. She says, Mirla says she's grateful that Gil is in her life. She says she is amazing. She really started getting kind of emotional. She told Gil, you know, she's thankful for him every day. He's just so thoughtful. And she says that, you know, it's making her emotional because you pray for these things, and then when these things start to happen that you never thought would happen, it can, you know, make you feel a little bit overwhelmed. And I totally understand. I felt her in this moment. So The message here is that Michaela was giving us is whatever you praying for, and make sure you're ready for it when it comes. Okay. So she starts to cry, basically saying she didn't think she would get everything and more that she wanted in marriage, and she's just so very happy. So I thought this was super sweet, and we basically seen a 180 with how Michaela was kind of given to us, I would say, or produced by us, where we're seeing a different side of her, and I really do hope her and Gil make it, but. Dr. Pepper does want her to work on her negativity so she does not lose Gil. And again, I think both of these conversations align with each other, so it should really help them once they get back together. So now we have Michaela and Zach meeting with the expert. Zach is with Dr. Pepper and Michaela's with Pastor Cal. So Michaela says that they've only had one good week of good times, but she said right now it's good. And I'm like, at least she's being honest, because that is right. He asks, why does she think that they were matched? She says that they're both ambitious, goofy, strong-headed, blah, blah, blah. He asks what unanswered questions she would like to have for Zach. And she says she would like to know what the picture of marriage that Zach has, because it looks like he has such a strong vision. And I'm like, I agree. I think we all see that. So it would be helpful to know what that looks like. She says that she just wants him to be happy because if he isn't happy, it affects her, but she does not want to be the source of his happiness. And I'm like, okay, I feel you on that. Why you should make your spouse or your partner happy. You should not be the main source of their happiness. Pastor Cal says, is it possible that maybe some of this happiness that a lot of his happiness can come from you, is what he said. And the minute he said a lot of his happiness, I was like, wait a minute, Pastor Cal, why are you always putting so much of this pressure on the women to bend and move and make these men do the things that they should already be doing? Why is a lot of his happiness, why is the pressure of that on Michaela? Yes, she is a contributor, being a spouse. It's a role that you play. But essentially what you're saying, if it's a lot of his happiness comes from her, if they are no longer together, as she's pointed out, then what? Then you're responsible for this person's depression at that point as well, Pastor Cal? I was not feeling that. And Michaela basically said what I wanted to say. And she was like, that's a lot to put another adult's happiness on you. We can contribute, yes, but to be responsible for somebody else's mood, not so much. He asks what can be done to create a safe space for the happy Zach to return. And she basically has all these questions as, I do, but she just really doesn't know what to do. Zach on the other side is with Dr. Pepper. She asks how marriage is going, and Zach says that they have issues, but they're in a good place right now. But he thinks that they are missing the element that they were meant to be. And Dr. Pepper is like, she doesn't think things are meant to be. There are opportunities. And I'm like, yes, Zach, this is not a Disney movie where the prince kisses the princess and all of a sudden, they're intertwined and they live happily ever after. You have to work for what you want, no matter how perfect two people are with each other. You will have to work to make things work at all times. It just does not magically happen, Zach. Like, cut it out. These men just getting on my nerves. She asks, what answers he needs to say yes on decision day. He said that the last week has been amazing with dates, and if it stays this way, he's optimistic about the future. And again, I'm like, well, that ain't reality, Zach. Everything is not going to be great every single day. So therefore, you need to answer the question and say what it is that you need to say yes on decision day. Zach says that he's going to talk to her about being comfortable being herself, because he says that he feels that she kind of tiptoes around him sometimes because she's maybe afraid or unsure of his reaction. And I'm like, you've kind of given her examples as to why she may feel that way. So we'll see where it goes. Dr. Pepper shares that it's important to really avoid the harsh words when they're having, conversations and disagreements. Zach, being a little emotional hummingbird that he is, he starts to cry and says that he's realized he's a perfectionist and nothing he does in life is good enough. And he has put that pressure on Michaela. And I'm like, Lord, if this is not further confirmed that this man needs some kind of therapy, this is probably something that has stemmed from his childhood. And I know, of course, being a daughter and now having daughters, that parents can sometimes put unintentionally pressure on their kids to be great, do great, and all this goodness, but that can sometimes cause them to be a really difficult adult to get along with if they continue to harbor on perfectionists, because nobody is perfect, Zach. Nobody expects perfection in you. You should not expect perfection in other people because you yourself are not perfect. So I'm just like, you got to figure that out, because you're going to forever look for something that is unattainable. Even if things, which I hope don't work out with Michaela, you're never going to find this perfection in another spouse or another partner, Zach. You just got to get over it, sir. So Mirla and Gil meet back up after their talk with the expert, and child, Mirla is still drunk, okay? She is coming in there swinging, pocketbook down. Gil can't help but laugh because he is like, yeah, the martinis, margaritas, whatever she had is still in her system, and she is having a good time, sir. Gil asks her some questions about being a Debbie Downer, and he says that the problem is when she gets like that, his mood starts to change, and he asks why she is like that. And she says that she's an introvert, so if she is uncomfortable, she gets moody. He asks what he can do to be a buffer, and she says basically what you're already doing, making me laugh, changing the subject, basically just give me a distraction, and I'll kind of flip my mood around. Great. He wants to be considerate. He wants her to be considerate of other people's feelings when she gets like that, so that it tries not to affect others. He also says that in these moments for her to try to be more affectionate, because it's hard to be cranky when you're affectionate. And I'm like, right, it's pretty much the same argument of if you're arguing with your spouse or your partner, argue while you're naked. How angry are you going to stay at each other if you're just looking at each other naked? May work. Then we see sentimental Zach and Michaela meet back up and talk about their meetings. He shares that he cried. No surprise there. And he realized that his past relationships didn't work out because of him being a perfectionist. So he has this ideal person in his head that he has admitted that nobody will live up to, but he knows he needs to change it or it will cause him to be alone for the rest of his life, and he does not want to be alone. She asks about his vision for marriage, and he says just, to be happy with him, his wife and his kids, dancing, playing in the house. That's what he wants marriage to look like. And he just, he wants somebody to just make him unbelievably happy. And I'm just like, okay, Zach, but what are you going to contribute to that? Because I hear a lot, but I don't see a lot, okay? She asks about the goals of their marriage, and he says to continue to get to know each other and communicate. And he thinks that will get them where they both want to be, which is to have a future with one another. She says she wished that she could shake the hesitation and the guard that she has up, and Zach asks how he can make her feel secure, because he actually didn't know she still had a guard up at this point. She says that his word and actions mean a lot to her, but she doesn't know what those words are, but she gets a sense from him that he doesn't want things to be long term. So basically she's like, I need to hear certain things, but she can't identify what those things are. And the fact that he has mentioned before, that he doesn't see a future and he's not sure where they're going, that basically gives her hesitation of, well, why do I put in 100% effort if he isn't even sure that he wants to stay with me? It's like, am I wasting my time? So because that, she's having a hard time opening up. So I hope they can work on that. But from the previews, I doubt it. We are now 16 days until decision day, and Johnny is meeting with Dr. Pepper and Bao is meeting with Pastor Cal. And I'm just automatically like, Pastor Cal better not come with the shits, because on their little Zoom call the other week, he was with it. And I'm like, Dr. Pepper, you better come and bring it, okay? So Johnny jumps right in and says that, with Bao, he is someone that he does not want to be. And I'm like, here we go, blaming this child for everything that's going on with you, Johnny. He says that they do not have constructive arguments because, it just doesn't lead to any resolution. And I'm like, well, you walk away most of the time, Johnny, or you start throwing the temper tantrum like a 3-year-old. Dr. Pepper tells him that he has said things that he needs to apologize for, and he needs to find a better way to deal with his anger. And I'm like, yes, ma'am, tell him, Dr. Pepper. She wants them to be able to talk about differences and then not come to a standstill, but actually, come full circle and resolve it. Dr. Pepper tells him to talk with Bao about communicating and trying something different. He says that they constantly argue about the truth because they have two perceptions of the truth. And I'm like, it's because you're also shut out to trying to be empathetic or to just put yourself in her shoes to figure out where she is coming from. You see your way, and then you have complete tunnel vision as to, nope, this is how it is. No matter what you say, this is how it is. So it's like again, you have to listen for understanding, not listen to respond. And Johnny, you have a real problem with that. So Dr. Pepper says that they need structure for the conversation and really identify what is not working. He says, oh, I have some ideas that I want to try, but I need Bao to be on board with them. And again, I'm like, sigh, Johnny. You just want this woman to do everything that you want her to do. Forget what she wants and needs. It's all about what you want and need all the time. It is the Johnny Show, 24/7, 365. Back with Bao and Pastor Cal, she says that she feels checked out and feels like she's married to a man that was not ready for marriage. And I'm like, ding. She feels unappreciated and she is done feeling this way. And I'm like, there you go, Bao. Put your foot down, okay? Because we don't want no nonsense coming from Pastor Cal. She says that Johnny wants to build a stronger foundation for marriage and she agrees, but she also feels that he is 80% out the door already and she only has a husband on paper. Pastor Cal can admit that Johnny has said some terrible things to her. And I'm like, he has. Bao says she doesn't feel why he needs to be so malicious and cut her down so much. And she's beginning just to look so frustrated. And I don't blame her because there's really no rhyme or reason as to why he has to just cut at her neck every single time they have a conversation. She says that she doesn't think he has the emotional maturity to be a partner or a father. And I'm like, keep throwing the darts on the bullseye, Bao. Like, you are killing it right now. Pastor Cal wants her to ask him if he felt he was ready to get married. And I'm like, we already know the answer to this. Pastor Cal recommends that they go back to level 1 and keep things light. And I do agree, but I think neither one of them can keep it light. They both have a tendency just to keep going deeper and deeper and deeper when it's just like, okay, you've answered that question. Let's leave it alone and go. But it's like, no, but you say the sky's blue. Well, why is the sky blue? Do you know when the sky turns gray? Why did it turn gray? What shade of gray is? Like, they just have to keep going and going and going and going. And I'm just like, stop it. So Pastor Cal, of course, he's trying to be all hopeful and such. He says you can build a foundation through adversity. So I've seen couples, turn it around. They've been in this place and then they get together and they have this long lasting marriage and they're still together. And I'm like, that's all well and good, Pastor Cal, but at the expense of someone else's emotional and mental health, not sure I'm on board with that one, okay? Brent and Ryan is up next, and Brent meets with Pastor Cal. He asks if anything could happen. Okay, so Pastor Cal asks if there's anything that could happen for Ryan to change his behavior that could make her say yes on decision day. She says it's for him to, she wants him to open up to keep trying. And basically, if he continues to open up and keep trying, she's willing to keep trying. But she feels like the Ryan she saw on the honeymoon is a different Ryan than what he is now. She says that she is shifting how she feels to see if he's even capable of giving her what he needs and what she needs. And I'm like, no, Brent, he's not capable of, he's not even interested in knowing what it is that you need. So no, he's not capable of giving it to you. She says that there is no intimate communication, and he tells her to ask him, ask Ryan what your idea of marriage looks like and when he gave up on their marriage. And Brent is like, ooh, that's really good. So I'm like, so ask him and see what he says. And I just feel in this moment with basically all the advice that Pastor Cal is giving these people individually, while it is great, I think the questions that you are telling them to go back and ask their spouse, they've kind of discussed in some way, shape, or form, and they can't get past it by themselves. So they need a neutral third party there to help them navigate these difficult conversations that they have not had with each other already. Hence why they have not had them already. But Pastor Cal basically says they have nothing to lose, so go ahead and ask the tough questions. I'm like, I guess so. So now we move on to Ryan with Dr. Pepper, and I'm like, Dr. Pepper, if you don't get up in his ass, we gonna have a problem, okay? She asks him when he believed the connection left with his wife, and he says that after their meeting with Dr. Viviana, he says that he decided to stay open, but I'm like, when did we see this, sir? I'm just not, did we miss a whole episode, or did they just cut it on the production floor? I don't know what happened, but we didn't see that. But he says he just can't keep fighting when things don't feel like they're just right. And I'm like, again, when were you fighting? I don't recall. You say that when you leave and come back, you say, oh, I feel rejuvenated. I can do this. I'm focused. I'm in it. And then we see the same thing happen over and over and over again from you, Ryan. So She asks how they've dealt with things he didn't like, and he says that, basically the communication is an issue, because he goes in again of, it's hard to have these, conversations, because I know it's things that she does not want to hear. And I'm like, conversations are going to be not pleasant for a lot of times in a lot of situations in your life, Ryan. You have to man up, grab your balls, and have the conversation, not tiptoe around what the issue is. And basically the same thing goes for Brent, because they have the exact same communication style. So Dr. Pepper says that there's a pattern of checking off things that are wrong, but not exactly sharing it with her. And I'm like, exactly. Key and point, the messiness. You've shown us twice now how messy she is, but yet you don't tell her. You told Zach she has to know things aren't good, but you don't tell her. You tell Johnny issue. You tell everybody what's going on except Brent. You won't spit it out. And I'm glad she is not giving you an out and forcing you to tell her what it is exactly you need to say, because you need to man up. She tells him that there's no way to get closer without dealing with the feelings. So seeing her for, who she is. And she says that, he hasn't really seen that, and he needs to really try, because Dr. Pepper says, I don't know if I've seen you really put in the effort, and I need you to do something here. Okay. He again says he's going to put in more effort, but we know this is all lip service coming from him. Johnny and Bao, they meet back up, and he asks, how she's feeling. And Bao is like, I don't know. And she don't feel no different. And I don't blame her. Johnny says that he has some things that he regrets and he is sorry, but Bao is not sure if the apology is sincere. And I completely agree. He asks how they can improve their communication, and she says she wants to talk about her concerns without being afraid of his response, and it will be helpful to try to see her perspective on things. What we've all said all along, and even in this moment as she's talking and saying this, it is taking everything in him not to walk away or blow up yet again. It's like the smallest things trigger him, which makes me, of course, confirm that he just does not like her. Because when you don't like somebody, everything about them bothers you, even if it is the smallest thing. Everything about them bothers you because you just don't like them. And that's exactly what I see coming from Johnny at this moment. Bao asks if he's willing to fully show up and not run away again. He says he hasn't run away yet. And I'm like, Johnny, you haven't ran away if you don't get out of my face. He says that he can explode when he, feel himself getting angry, get ready to explode. It's best that he just, steps away during those times, because if not, he would say some mean things. And I'm like, so what you haven't said thus far is not mean, like telling her that, her being joyful and giddy is a turnoff. You telling her that you just really don't like her. You telling her that you were literally wish she was matched with literally anyone else other than her. All those weren't mean things. Johnny, make it make sense. Bao says that she is okay with him when he needs to step away, but just not leaving. She says she has been present, but feels like, things are turning back around, because basically the way he's talked to her, like, I feel like we were moving forward, but then we did like a U-turn because you just be talking to me crazy and he needs to cut it out. But she puts her foot down and she says, I will not be talked to like that. I deserve respect. And this whole time I am yelling at my TV. Yes, Bao, tell him what you need. Whatever little tantrum he needs to have, let him deal with that himself. That is a Johnny problem and not a Bao problem, okay? And then after all of this about him saying, I just have to walk away so I don't say mean things, he tells her, basically, the reason we did not have a second date all those many, many years ago in college is because I wasn't attracted to you and I had no chemistry. And I'm like, Johnny, you just proved our point in this very conversation of, you could say that you walk away so you don't say mean things, but yet you just sat here and said a mean thing once again to this child's face. Bao should have threw a drink in his face and then just left him right at the table by himself. Lastly, we see Rachel meeting up with Pastor Cal and Jose with Dr. Pepper. And here comes Jose. I've connected for a better person. Things are great. I just love her. Blah, blah, blah. We don't care. He says coming into this process, he wanted to be the provider. But then he also asked for an independent woman, which he has in Rachel. But yet he can't handle it because he still wants to do everything. Again, make it make sense. Men want an independent woman until she tells you what it is she needs and wants from you, or what she is and ain't gonna do, and then it's a problem. Dr. Pepper calls him out and says that, you can be controlling and you need to respect seeing the world through the eyes of your partner and not in the way that you think you have it all figured out. He says he isn't happy with how he handled the situation of basically her calling him Johnny, but he says her walking away is tough. And my jaw hit the floor and I said, what? Her walking away was tough, but do you just omit everything that you said for her to walk away? Like, Jose, you Jose into the 10th degree right now of acting like I am the victim. She walked away from me and it just made it tough for us to resolve and, live happily ever after that. No, you told this woman to get the F out, but yet when she walked away, it was a problem. Get out of my face with this. He asks how he can help her build trust with him, and Dr. Pepper says just by asking the questions and figuring out what your partner needs. She says she has seen your anger and that's going to make it even harder to build trust. But I think Rachel has some sort of blinders on because here we are yet again. Rachel says that Jose is everything she's asked for plus more. And again, I am so sick of the two of them feeding us this as if we cannot all see through this and we have not seen his behavior show us the complete opposite. Rachel says she needs to know if she is caring for him the right way that he needs to because she is not sure. And she wants to talk about the incident of her being locked out because she has seen his temper and, of course, him being vindictive. Pastor Cal said, y'all just need to talk about it. And I'm like, duh, Pastor Cal. That is the obvious answer, that they need to talk through it. But again, we need a neutral party involved to figure out why he is being so vindictive when he gets angry. If not, he's just going to sit there and gaslight her through the whole conversation. Ryan and Brent meet back up and he says that Dr. Pepper questioned his effort in communication and she needed to. Brent says that it isn't good for him to not to share the things that need to be said, as his sister has already told him that whatever you feel and you need to tell her is better than holding it in. Ryan asks her about her talk with Pastor Cal, and she basically starts to immediately get nervous about the tough questions that Pastor Cal says she needs to ask him. She keeps beating around the bush, and I'm like, girl, if you don't spit it out. And she eventually still does not ask him the tough question of when did you check out of this marriage? And I'm like, the communication between these two tears my nerves up so bad. Like, neither one of y'all want to talk and make each other upset, but neither one of y'all are happy. So at this point, what is the point? Go ahead and have the tough conversation because you already ain't in this blissfully wonderful place. So go ahead, and if it leads to an argument, oh well, how down and depths can things get when y'all already ain't feeling each other? Like, cut it out, the two of y'all. I just can't do it. Jose and Rachel get ready to meet up, and honestly, I don't care what these two have to say. Again, he's talking about when she left is a concern. Rachel is gullible and falling for the nonsense, blah, blah, blah. I don't care about them two, y'all. I'm sorry. All of the couples then get together to play volleyball. Bao is dressed in her cute little cheerleader outfit, and Johnny, of course, runs up to her and gives her a hug, and Bao is like, wait a minute, where is this coming from? I'm sure it's the outfit. And I'm like, yes, it is, because I'm sure that fulfills one of his little, fantasies that he has in his mind with his wife dressing up like a cheerleader. So after they get done playing volleyball, we see Bao, Brett, and Mirla are talking. We see Ryan, Jose, Michaela, and Rachel in a little group about how the visit went with the experts. And then we see Brent, Ryan, we see Johnny, Zach, and Gil talking together. So again, same old story with Brett and Ryan telling other people their issues instead of each other. Same old song and dance. I just really don't care. And then Johnny says that he hasn't been happy in a long time. I get little glimpses of joy, but I'm not happy. And I'm just like, Johnny, leave. Leave. Nobody is forcing you to stay. And nobody wants you to be unhappy, miserable. Leave if it is that bad, okay? So then we hear Zach and Michaela going back and forth. We see from the view from the outside of the apartment. And once the cameras go in, we see that they're having an argument because Michaela wants them to sleep in separate rooms and Zach does not agree. She says that they talked about decision day, and basically they said, if you had to make a decision today on decision day, they said that they would both say no. So because they said they would both say no, Michaela's like, well, what's the point of us being in the same bed or the same room together if we don't even want to be with each other? And I'm like, I get it, but then you should keep trying because today really ain't decision day. So Zach says that it hurts for them to, stay in separate rooms because things have been going good between the two of them. And Michaela has a really good question, and I didn't blame her. And she said, well, if things are going so good, why do we both just say if today was decision day, we would both say no? And I'm like, QTNA, questions that need answers, Zach. I mean, she got a point. So 30 minutes later, Michaela asks, Zach if they were good, and basically he's giving her the silent treatment. And then they show Zach in the room alone, and he says that he's going home again. Go figure. We just expect this from him and Johnny to just go over to their house anytime they feel like it. But they both have terrible communication and compromising. And I think with the both of them, while Zach does not get probably as heated as quickly as Michaela, they both have a terrible time with staying leveled when they are having disagreements, and they both start raising voices and cussing. So they are completely both at fault, and they need to compromise, because in this situation, I think a quick, easy fix would have been, okay, where you want us to sleep separately, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I respect it. So let's sleep separately tonight, and then tomorrow let us talk about it again and see where we are when we have cooled down and we both have level heads. Simple as that, y'all. Y'all get on my nerves. So Brian then meets up with Ryan. Brent then meets up with Ryan's sister, and she says she needs help because they're struggling, and she feels like his sister knows him best and can give some advice. She says she doesn't know how to get to know him. And his sister says that when he is put on the spot, either he walks away or he just tells you what you want to hear. And this is spot on. She definitely knows her brother Ryan. His sister asks, when did things change? Because she also mentioned during the honeymoon, it seemed like things were better. And then once y'all got back here, things were a little bit sketchy. And then here comes his sister basically throwing him under the bus. And she's like, so since y'all got back to Texas, that's when y'all had the issues. So basically there may be some, lingering situations here, which maybe kind of took the intimacy and took kind of things going well off the table, because maybe he has some unfinished business. And I was like, so basically you saying your brother still got feelings for somebody else, which is why he can't catch feelings for her? That's what it sounded like to me. What it sounded like to y'all? Because that's what I felt like. We then see Zach meeting with his brothers via Zoom as the episode is about to close. And he says that Michaela was supposed to join them, but she canceled. I honestly can't blame her on this. When you weren't home, what do you want her to do? Then have another argument in front of your brothers? I don't know. He talks about the argument they had the night before. However, he tells the brothers, from what we see, that when she mentioned sleeping in the bedrooms, he said, hey, that was cool. But I'm like, Zach, that's not what we saw. You had an issue with sleeping in separate rooms. So don't then come to your brothers and like, no, I was cool. I agreed to what she said, and she still had the problem, because that makes her look bad and makes it look like she is the problem in this situation when y'all are both at fault. He says that he told her, if they were sleeping separately, I'm going to go sleep in a good bed, which is at my house, in my own bed that I pay for. And he said that she said she was cool with that. And immediately me and his brother was like, that ain't the truth. You know she ain't cool with it, but she ain't going to show no weakness, because right now you pissing her off. Zach, do you know anything about how a woman operates? Sometimes we say things we don't really mean, and it's up to you to figure out that we don't really mean it. You should know that. You should know that, but I'm just like, Zach, come on. Like, anyway, he then shares a text that she sent him, which basically, says that because he left and she really didn't want him to leave, she's moving fully out of the apartment. And Zach starts talking, and she took the spices and stuff, and his brother is like, oh, she's just being childish. Like, that is just crazy, man. I'm like, no, your brother's not telling you the full story, and you need to check your brother as well, because he is hella childish along with Michaela. He says, he tells Zach that, you've been really trying, and it's just like, she is not just, meeting you basically where you are. And I'm like, cut the shit, sir. Your brother is trying a whole lot to run this woman crazy, and she is doing the same. He is not what he is portraying y'all to be on this TV and what the messaging that he's giving y'all. And I hate that, because it is so not fair to try to get feedback from people when you're just trying to get them to be on your side. They're your family. They are already going to side with you most of the time, but I need you to be honest so that they are not looking at Michaela sideways when you have been a contributor to this whole conversation situation as well, Zach. Like, stop it. You getting on my nerves. But that was basically the end of the episode, y'all. Next week, we already see where the drama pops off of Michaela get this big blow up that we've seen since pretty much the trailer of it. So they go on their couples trip, and I really have to see what happened for this huge blow up, because she looks real crazy on these previews, y'all. I am just like, my God, Michaela, this is not a good look. I know Zach ain't gonna be completely innocent, but girl, you flipping tables, shaking the table, and everything, and fighting the producer, gotta hold you. Girl, it is too much, y'all. So we'll be back next week, same time, same place. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.